Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. The US president plans to decertify the landmark Iran nuclear pact negotiated by his predecessor, paving the way for potentially reopening sanctions. And the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons wins the Nobel Peace Prize for this year. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. His Highness Sayyid Asad bin Tariq Al Said, Deputy Prime Minister for International Relations and Cooperation Affairs and Special Representative of His Majesty the Sultan, paid a visit to the famous seafront in the capital of Brunei, Bandar Seri Begawan. During the visit, a river tour was organized on board the Brunei Royal Yacht around the traditional water village Kampong Ayer, which is the largest floating village. It is overlooking many historical, civilizational and tourism landmarks in the capital. His Highness expressed his admiration of the natural elements of the village and its unique, beautiful scenes. His Highness Sayyid Asad bin Tariq Al Said was accompanied during the tour by His Excellency Dato Padoka Sri Al-Haj Ali bin Abong, Minister of Primary Resources and Tourism, and a number of senior officials in Brunei, in addition to the official delegation. At the end of his tour, His Excellency, the Minister of Primary Resources and Tourism in Brunei, presented a commemorative gift to His Highness, the Deputy Prime Minister for International Relations and Cooperation Affairs and Special Representative of His Majesty the Sultan, in recognition of his visit. President Donald Trump is planning to decertify the landmark Iran nuclear pact negotiated by his predecessor Barack Obama, paving the way for potentially reopening sanctions. Trump will argue that the agreement is not in the interest of the United States and plans to decertify the accord but leave it in force and make Congress decide whether to reimpose punitive sanctions. Resumed sanctions could derail the accord negotiated with Tehran by Obama and other major world powers. Trump must tell Congress by October 15 whether he believes Iran is in compliance with the agreement. He may well fly in the face of advice from some of his closest advisors, declaring Iran is not in compliance and leaving the pact's fate in the hands of the Republican-controlled Congress.
We will do what we must do to prevent that from happening.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today that he hoped US President Donald Trump would make a balanced decision on whether to remain engaged in the international deal to curb Iran's nuclear program. Under the deal, Iran agreed to restrict its nuclear program in return for lifting most international sanctions that had crippled its economy. Trump, who has called the pact an embarrassment and the worst deal ever negotiated, has been weighing whether it serves US security interests as he faces an October 15 deadline for certifying that Iran is complying with its terms. The International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, was announced as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize today, as the Norwegian Nobel Committee warned that the risk of a nuclear conflict is greater than it has been for a long time. Berit Reiss-Andersen, the leader of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, made the announcement in Oslo, Norway this morning and said the decision had a solid grounding in the will of the award's founder, Alfred Nobel. ICAN began in Australia and was officially launched in Vienna in 2007, describing itself as a coalition of grassroots non-government groups in more than 100 nations. In July, 122 nations adopted a UN treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, but nuclear-armed states, including the United States, Russia, China, Britain and France, stayed out of the talks. Tropical storm Nate has killed at least 22 people in Central America with torrential rains that forced thousands from their homes, uprooted trees, knocked out bridges, and turned roads into rivers. Forecasters predicted it will strengthen into a hurricane headed for Mexico and the United States. The country hardest hit by the storm that began Wednesday was Nicaragua, with 11 dead and 7 missing. Officials in Costa Rica said 8 people died, including a 3-year-old girl, after they were hit by falling trees and mudslides, and 2 young Nicaraguan farm workers. At least 17 people were missing. Costa Rica declared a national emergency as it struggled with mudslides, washed-out roads and overflowing rivers. Around 800 people had been evacuated, nearly 600 homes were flooded, and 14 communities were isolated because of rains that have been falling for days. Still to come in our news bulletin. Mangrove Nature Reserve is the natural shelter for 194 species of migratory birds. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The price of Omani oil December delivery reached today $55 and 36 cents per barrel. Oman Oil Price witnessed an increase by 81 cents compared to yesterday's price, which reached $54 and 55 cents per barrel. The average price of Oman Oil October delivery reached $50 and 39 cents, increasing by $2 and 76 cents compared to the price of September delivery. A photography exhibition was held in the Governorate of Dhahra, marking the World Tourism Day, which falls on the 27th of September every year. The event showcased the beauty of the environment and nature of the Sultanate. It presented different artwork by a number of Omani photographers that ranged from portraits and other images of natural landscapes. The photographs also showcased human lifestyles in desert, sea, village and city environments, which are considered the main aspects of the artistic pieces. The exhibition is covering all fine art fields, photography and sculpture. It is also a great opportunity for Omani artists to share knowledge and experience with the professional photographers. Masira Island Health Project was hailed by the World Health Organization for its services and high-level medical care through modern means and technology. The project is considered a vital addition to the health sector in the Sultanate. It is worth mentioning that a delegation from the United Nations Fund for Population is currently visiting the island to get acquainted to the Omani experience in the health field and spreading awareness, as well as to prepare a report to be forwarded to the World Health Organization. Mangrove Natural Reserve recorded 194 species of migrant birds from Africa and Russia, in addition to indigenous birds in the Sultanate. It is a natural shelter for these birds. The reserve was the first in the Sultanate to protect mangrove trees. It is located off the Sea of Oman in the Wilaya of Bosha. Its area reached more than 1 million square meters. Government's efforts to preserve the reserve resulted in making it a suitable place for conducting studies and planting mangrove trees. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Affairs organizes awareness programs and activities for local community and school students to acquaint them with the importance of protecting mangrove trees. Public transport users in Kigali no longer pay with cash, instead using a rechargeable card system which aims to eliminate fare dodging and bring Rwanda closer to the cash-light economy the government hopes to create. More details in the following report.
In Kigali, this simple gesture marks a revolution. Rechargeable tap-and-go cards are now the only way to pay on the capital's buses. In place since the start of October, they're already paying off for transport operators.
On a augmenté le rendement Our yields have increased, our revenues are up. It wasn't easy at the start because people didn't understand, given what people were used to. And you know, changing people's habits isn't easy.
A card costs a little more than $1, and the fixed price of a journey is around 30 cents. The new system makes it easier for the government to collect tax. And it has cut down on delays and fare dodging, which the card's manufacturer says was responsible for a 30% loss in revenue.
Before these cards, we had problems when customers were trying to pay. They always tried to haggle, but now they tap in. It's quick and there are no more arguments.
Most travellers have adapted to the new system, but not all of them.
It's not fair. I've come from my village to visit someone, and they asked me to buy a card, and I don't even understand what it's for.
The card is the brainchild of this Rwandan company and is a major step in the Rwandan government's plans to move away from a cash economy.
We're also contributing to our country's goal of having a cash-light economy and having all transactions being done electronically.
Already operating in Cameroon, AC Group is hoping more African countries will tap into their technology, meaning public transport across the continent could be heading in a new direction.
And now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of low clouds and fog late at night and early morning over the governorates of Sharqiya and Worcester and coastal areas of Sea of Oman. Winds will be southerly to southeasterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1 metre. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The US president plans to decertify the landmark Iran nuclear pact negotiated by his predecessor, paving the way for potentially reopening sanctions. And the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons wins the Nobel Peace Prize for this year. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.